Wrestle Cinema fans, welcome to episode 2. On today's episode, we are talking all about the wrestling news that's been going on in the past week. Is Britt Baker done with AEW? Ilya Dragunov might be returning. We got Penta, he's debuted in the WWE. Jordan Grace and Josh Alexander might be leaving TNA. PCO really upset with TNA. And then, of course, Christopher Daniels has retired. We'll briefly talk about that. We're also talking about the People versus GCW. Game Changer Wrestling's second show at the Hammerstein. The whole point of the show was to say, hey, you guys hated the first one. Well, we're going to prove you wrong on the second one. Did they do it? Yeah, we'll get into the episode on that one. And then to wrap it up, we'll talk about my wish list for AEW, for WWE, what I'm hoping to come from in 2025. As always, you could follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok while it still exists, at Wrestle Cinema. We're on YouTube, on our social medias. We're doing I'm doing some skits, we're trying some new things out there. Content all you want. So go check it out. And with all that, let's start the show. You are now listening to Wrestle Cinema. Yeah! A podcast focusing on wrestlers who dive into the acting world. We're talking about wrestling, we're talking about movies, we're talking about shows, anything and everything in the wrestling world. And acknowledge me! And now, with all that, here is your host, Joe Cologne. What is going on? We are here, episode 2 of Wrestle Cinema, in our second or maybe our first season. I still don't even know what we're doing here, but what is going on? Welcome. Today is Wednesday, January 22nd. And yeah, we're doing a second episode. I'm trying my best to make sure we're going to be doing weekly episodes here because, hey, no matter what, I've seen it. I tell people this. I got to preach what I practice what I preach, whatever the word is. And that is consistency is how you see growth, especially in the land of creation when it comes to podcasts, videos, YouTube, Twitch, you name it. You got to be consistent, and that's what we're doing here. So week 2, we'll talk about week 3. We're going to be dropping an episode next week, and we'll talk about that at the end of this episode. But hey, thanks for tuning in. We just had MLK Day. We also just had the inauguration of Donald Trump. Neither here or there. And then on Sunday was the Baltimore Ravens losing to the Buffalo Bills. I got a video on that coming out soon on my personal Instagram for content. That's at the homie Joe Bro. And yeah, man, on Sunday as well was the People versus GCW. GCW's second show at the Hammerstein. I would have been there, but the Bills versus the Ravens game, their playoff hopes to advance in the AFC Championship. That was my priority, and it was a good game, but I'm not going to focus on that. Mark Andrews, I'm not going to focus on you either, but hey, you are a really good player, but these clutch moments are killing me. But anywho, we're not here for that. We're talking about wrestling. As I mentioned in the top of the episode, we got some wrestling news we're going to talk about. We'll talk about the People versus GCW. We'll talk about what I'm hoping for to happen in 2025 in terms of wrestling from the big companies of WWE and AEW. But before we get into that, I just want to say Allie Katch, she got injured. I'm sure if you're, in the wrestling world, if you're up to date with the indie stuff, she broke her leg in 2 spots. What would have been a huge moment for her at the Hammerstein with People versus GCW. I think there was a chance she could have went over, beat Effie, and probably beat Mance since, they turned her heel and all this progression happened. And unfortunately, she got hurt. I've met Allie Katch 2 times in my own life outside of the, being in a wrestling show. And she's really cool. I appreciate her. She's one of my favorite indie stars right now, and it's unfortunate that she's going to be out for some time. But there is a GoFundMe page out there for her. You can check the description of this episode, and you'll find it there. Last time I checked earlier today, $47,000 was donated for Allie Katch. Incredible. 47. The goal is 50. If you have anything that you want to help donate, feel free and go check out the GoFundMe in the description of this episode. And yeah, I just wish the best for her. Surgery went well, it seemed like, so hopefully, we'll see what happens. But man, unfortunate for an amazing person like Allie. Sorry to see that happen, man. But I just wanted to talk about that because that is, a big thing that came out of the People versus GCW. But, we'll get a little bit more into it once we're talking about that. But right now we're going to talk about some wrestling news. First up on the list, Britt Baker might be done with AEW. So there's been reports going on Twitter, all over the internet, basically saying that Tony Khan is reportedly done and, just not looking to book her anymore on AEW television. There's been frustrations backstage with her. We heard about a couple of months. If you're, like I said, if you're someone that keeps up in the know, then you're probably listening to this podcast. Maybe you're a casual. If you're a casual, Britt Baker, one of AEW's quote-unquote pillars of the women's division. She was, the third or fourth AEW women's champion, had it for a good amount of time. She is loved and hated by the fans, to put it out there. And nowadays, it's more hated than loved. I will sit there and I'll tell you, I was a fan of hers for a while. What sold me was her feud with Thunder Rosa. That feud was incredible for what it was at the time. And that's what really sold me on her. But then, as time went on, you could say hit or miss. She's not the, best in-ring performer, but she is a good talent nonetheless. And there's a lot of frustrations with her. I know she came back, and not a lot of people were happy. Unfortunately, she almost died, which I'm glad, never would want that for anyone, so I'm glad she's okay. But, frustrations in the back with MJF and Alicia Tout, I think, was like a thing going on a couple months ago, and an argument happened backstage. She's no longer with Adam Cole. That has nothing to do with her career, but that's just something, to put out there. And also mentioned in this little piece that I saw, it was tweeted by Wrestle Pursuit from PW Torch. Wade Keller is the person that they're sourcing, and pretty much saying that, Tony Khan does not want to deal with her. She's getting a lot of heat backstage. She's apparently hard to work with. And then I saw something from Brian Alvarez just earlier today saying, that's not the case at all. There's no real issues going on. They just don't have anything for her right now, which, I could believe. There's, a lot of wrestlers in AEW, which we'll talk about in my wish list, that AEW just has so many people and they're not doing anything with them. They're just letting them sit out on their contract. Very familiar to how it is with WWE in the past, where it's like, man, these people want to wrestle. Oh, they don't have anything for them. Mind you, they have, 4 hours of television a week? And you can't figure out something to put them all in. But hey, it is what it is, I guess. But hey, with that being said, Britt Baker may or may not be done with AEW. In the case of that, I could see WWE signing her. Why not? Put her in NXT. I'm sure she'll grow. She could use some opportunities to grow on the mic, because I don't think she's really there with that. She's definitely improved from day one. I don't think she ever deserved to be in that pillar situation that you want to say. She's not awful, but she's just not where she should have been, in my opinion. But hey, I think if she goes somewhere else, this could be good for her career. If not, maybe we'll see what happens in AEW. But right now, the fans that at least people I know, at least on the internet, and the internet isn't everything. Let's be honest. Let's be very clear. The internet, if wrestling was based off of how the internet looks at it, wrestling would no longer exist. But there's a lot of negativity out there for Britt Baker. If you want to look at an example, take a look at when she had her match against Mercedes Moné. A lot of people call that one a stinker, and they blame Britt for it. So that is just something there. So interesting to see what will happen with Britt Baker. Next on the news, in the WWE realm, Ilya Dragunov has been spotted at the WWE Performance Center. This was reported on Fightful. He looks like he's training to get back into the ring. He's not doing like rehab, as if when you're thinking about this, because if you're aware, he tore his ACL a couple months ago and he was going to be out for 6 to 9 months. Well, 4 months later, and he's not doing like traditional rehab. He's just out there in the ring getting ready. Who knows? The report's also saying that, there's no confirmed plan for Ilya right now, but Royal Rumble is in 2 weeks, so there is a good chance he could pop up there if he's ready. And I'm very interested to see what happens because Ilya Dragunov, I wasn't aware of his game back in the NXT UK days. I can honestly say I have not seen him go against Gunther. I will change that at some point, but I have not seen that. I was going to wait and see if he had the feud with Gunther while Gunther's, on the, with the main title or with the IC back then. I was going to wait and see, but hey, he is going to return soon, and I'm imagining a Gunther feud is in the, potential options for him, so I should check that out soon. But yeah, I'm a big fan. Happy to see that he might be pulling the John Cena and coming back way earlier from a torn ACL than you thought. So very interested to see what happens with Ilya Dragunov. In the other realm of professional wrestling, WWE's partner now, TNA, which is crazy to say. TNA is a partner of WWE. This is not even the news I was going to talk about, but just going to, this is news. They signed a deal where they're going to be working and helping each other out, sharing some talent. Man, I would love if this could just continue. This is like a test run right here for WWE doing some real, partnerships in the new age of professional wrestling. I know there's a quote-unquote war between AEW and WWE. Not really. There doesn't need to be one. I would love if they could get a partnership. And if we get a Worlds Collide with all the biggest wrestling brands ever, we'd all be happy as wrestling fans. Well, let me change my verbiage. Some of us would be happy because no matter what is good in the professional wrestling world, you have some negative people out there. Nonetheless, WWE and TNA have a working relationship, and we've seen it over the past couple of months. People like Jordan Grace has popped up. There was the Rascals popped up. There, you had what's her name? Why am I forgetting her name now? Oof. Rosemary popped up in NXT at one point. Like it's been a interesting partnership nonetheless. It's cool to see. It's been mostly with just the NXT talent, but we would love to see if this were ever to go to the WWE talent like AJ Styles, someone who is clearly one of the pillars of TNA in the early days. You can't think about TNA without thinking about AJ Styles. Would be cool to see if that eventually becomes a thing. But back to the original news I wanted to talk about. Jordan Grace and Josh Alexander are set to be free agents, which is pretty interesting, with Jordan Grace just wrapping up at Genesis, lost to Tessa Blanchard, which is kind of crazy that Tessa can be back in a major company, quote unquote, with her being in TNA. She had all those racist allegations or, confirmations pretty much of her being a racist. And the fans let it be known at TNA Genesis chanting, "She's a racist." Crazy chant, but, she deserved that. They were in the right for that. I think a biggest thing, a lot of people can get redemption from issues that they've had. Race, whatever. There's redemption arcs for a lot of people. I don't know if she's ever tried to do that. Go look at the Raw premiere on Netflix and Hulk Hogan. People are booing him because he's a racist. Clearly, that is very, very clear. We've heard it from the horse's mouth, and Hogan's the horse. And we've heard that there's been no real attempts at an apology. I mean, look at Mark Henry about a week or two ago, said on Busted Open Radio, he's like, I told Hogan, hey, let's get you out at these HBCs and just, talking and whatnot in a way, kind of like an apology tour in a way, and, trying to learn from, these black educated schools. And he was like, no, brother. So that's just, an instant of, someone not apologizing for something that they should have. And yet WWE still uses him. And then TNA now using Tessa. I don't know if she's ever apologized or done anything to prove it, but I don't think she has if the fans are treating her this way. As deserved, if that's the case. But yeah, Jordan Grace, easily going to get picked up by WWE. Why wouldn't they? She's already been so involved. She was just on the show a couple weeks ago. She is going to be WWE bound, and I don't blame her. And next up, Josh Alexander, one of the best wrestlers in TNA in the last couple of years now. He was, I think, multiple time TNA champion, world champion. At the very least, he held it once, and it was a good run. I think Josh Alexander has some potential. He's done heel work, he's done face work. He could go down. They'll definitely throw him in NXT. I don't see him putting him on the main roster. But Josh Alexander maybe reunites with Ethan Page. Maybe he doesn't even go there. Maybe he goes to AEW. Either which way, TNA have been losing a lot of good wrestlers as of late. They lost Speedball Mike Bailey. They're losing Jordan Grace. They're losing Josh Alexander. They picked up AJ Francis. I mean, I don't know what's going on in TNA. TNA, it's nice to call it TNA again because, a couple, this time last year, there was all the hype in the world for TNA. They had the Motor City Machine Guns as the champs. They had so much going for them. And now they are just the company that's like, oh, look at them. They exist somehow. Now they have a working relationship with WWE. Hopefully WWE doesn't eat them and spit them out. But hey, they're gone. And they have issues with not just, losing wrestlers in this situation. These are nice ways to lose wrestlers like Jordan Grace and Josh Alexander. There are videos of them, being thanked and, backstage and whatnot. But then you got wrestlers on other shows destroying belts. You got PCO, the French Frankenstein. He was on the pre-show for People versus GCW, and we'll get into that. And he won this Rumble match that they had, and he basically told the guys in the back, like, hey, I'm going to do this thing after I win the match to try and progress the storyline I have on TNA. Is this good with you guys? They said sure. I don't know what he told them. This is just what, it's on the rumor mill, it's on Fightful and all that stuff. Don't quote me on that in terms of sources. Don't want to be an air gold. But the thing was, he's like, yeah, I'm going to go do this. And instead of doing what he said he would have done, he went out. He said, I've been working years now for a company called TNA, because before that, MLJ gives him the mic, but, MLJ's like, we haven't seen you in a ring in almost 3 years in a GCW ring. Then he gives him the mic. He's like, I've been working for TNA. And then I forget exactly what he says next, but then he's like, I got some tools and I'm going to do something I should have done a while ago. Grabs a steel chair, grabs a sledgehammer, grabs the TNA Digital Championship, which I believe he's a current holder of, and he smashes the belt. He misses the first 2 times, but he eventually hits it pretty good. They got MLJ. I don't know if it's work or not, but he's like, stop, don't do this, stop. And you're left with a messed up digital media championship, but they cut to, a graphic right in the midst of it all. So clearly it wasn't what they expected, and they are not happy about it. More specifically, TNA is not happy about it. So apparently TNA, Mr. French Frankenstein PCO couldn't meet an agreement, and the contract they have together is done, and PCO is just upset. I guess he feels used. I guess he felt like they should have reached an agreement with him. I don't know. He's also saying that AEW tried to hire him 3 times, and that he was supposed to face Kenny Omega at Double or Nothing, I think 3 years ago, or the first Double or Nothing, which I think is crazy to say. But then again, who knows? Because knowing the way AEW has been recently, an old guy like PCO could definitely be in their main event scene. I saw a tweet basically saying that. So who knows what the hell is going on? AEW. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, PCO issues with TNA. That is a thing that is happening. We'll see if that ever develops to anything else. And talking about TNA, here's talking about a first ballot Hall of Famer for TNA who just recently retired as of last Saturday. Christopher Daniels has retired from in-ring competition. That is the word on the street. His match against Adam Page at Collision in a Texas Death Match is apparently his final match, which is kind of crazy. because no one made it a big deal. No one, I guess maybe Christopher Daniels is like, hey, I just want to do this, and I want to put my career at its end. He's still going to work with AEW as an agent and in the back. But man, Christopher Daniels, one of my favorite wrestlers from TNA ever. When I got into TNA, it was just after the whole AJ Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels feud. But I was watching when Christopher Daniels was having banger matches. I was unfortunately watching when he lost to Val Venus, but that's neither here or there. But, one of my favorite Christopher Daniels was I almost said the Acclaimed. Bad Influence. When he was with Bad Influence, Frankie Kazarian, that was a fun time. I didn't really follow afterwards when he went to ROH and, then SCU became a thing. But hey, big Christopher Daniels fan. And also, it's very impressive that Christopher Daniels has worked with ECW, WCW, WWE, ROH, TNA, PWG, New Japan, NWA, Noah, AAA, Chikara, and AEW. This man has worked in all the major companies that you could truly think of. And this is just an incredible career. I really hope he does get the flowers he deserves, whether it's a video package, whether it's TNA inducting him into their Hall of Fame, something. Because not only was he Christopher Daniels, we all know he was Curry Man. I mean, it's incredible he was able to pull off what he did. And man, his career couldn't get any better. He won world championships. He won tag team gold. He had some amazing matches with some of the best wrestlers ever. Christopher Daniels is one of the best. It's one of the best finishers ever. Sure, it's now Tiffany Stratton's finish. I wonder if he's ever talked about that or she's ever talked about that. But yeah, that's what a great finish to go now to Tiffany. But yeah, best moonsault ever. That's on my wrestler cause now. I love that it's in 2K. But hey, Christopher Daniels, thank you for an incredible career. And that's about it for all the wrestling news besides, hey, Penta's in WWE, and they're already selling masks that AEW should have been selling a long time ago. That is something we'll get into when we're talking about the wish list items for what I'll have with AEW. But next up on the list, The People versus GCW. GCW's second Hammerstein show happened this past Sunday, and the people are not happy. It is sad. I am someone that really enjoys GCW for, what they can offer to the wrestling world. It makes the indies grow. They are really, they have something special that they've been growing and growing and growing. And they even have a working relationship in some shape or form with WWE, where they've had some of their WWE stars show up at like Bloodsport and some other stuff. Like, it's just incredible that has been a thing. But unfortunately, the steam that they had for this second show, it did not deliver. On Cage Match, which is the internet wrestling database for all matches, people leave reviews. There's so much you could find on Cage Match about pro wrestling if you don't know about it. The show's currently with 64 votes. There's about 2.4 is the rating. That's the current rating. That is a very, very, very low score for the match. For the show. Yikes. And the show was also with pre-show to end about 6 hours long. Like WrestleMania length long. Crazy. I know you could maybe add on an extra 20 to 30 minutes because unfortunately when Allie Katch got injured, she had to get sent to the hospital and they needed to, with New York Sporting Commission, whatever the case, I think they even said it on the feed, 2 ambulances had to hit the premise and they both had to leave before they could really do anything. I don't understand how that works, but they had to find a way to kill time because the show couldn't continue. And the next match was the 6-man tag of the New York OGs versus the Real Effin' Pros. So unfortunately, this was not the show that they were hoping. It's kind of crazy when you're promoting the show as like, yeah, we know everyone hated the first Hammerstone show, so we're going to go crazy. We're going to give them the best show ever. And it just really didn't deliver. People can vote on these matches on cage match. And let's not believe everything you see here because, there's a lot of marks on this website and they love fucking around. I think cage match at one point had to take off voting because they were like, people were just really, really being ridiculous about a certain match. Was it the Jinder Mahal match against Seth Rollins for the world title? I think was a thing that they were all being like just annoying about on this because of the IWC. Anyway, I'm just like, look at some of these scores. The lowest score of the night with 24 votes is a 3.92, and I believe this is out of 10. Yes, this is out of 10. 3.92 for Effie beating Mance Warner for the title. The match went on for 19 minutes. I saw clips here and there, so let me put that out here too. I haven't truly watched the entire show. I was busy watching the Ravens game. I still haven't had the chance to sit down and watch it with life being busy, work, all that. But with the way that I've heard about the show, it doesn't make me excited. But yeah, 3.92. People were not happy with that that title picture. I just skimming through it, it didn't look like it was something that was worth watching, unfortunately. Before that, we had Matt Cardona go against Tommy Invincible in a quick defeat. He fucking destroyed him. Then Microman, which is really cool for me. I love Microman. And then Jimmy Lloyd, he went from Broski Jimmy to turning back to Jimmy Lloyd. He turned on him, and they had a 2-minute match. Matt Cardona is, GCW owes Matt Cardona a lot of money with the way he put GCW on the map. It was already, a growing indie at the time, but GCW having Matt Cardona on there as someone who was there for his very first appearance, it shocked the wrestling world that, because they were like, this Matt Cardona, this WWE Mark who got fired is now going to be here. And, he's going to do a death match. And, he's going to reinvent himself and be one of the best heels on the indies and show you what it's like to truly grind. A guy who's definitely made millions sitting on his ass in the WWE was able to grind on the indies for the last, 2 to 3 to 4 years now. Made GCW very relevant. And he, gave an opportunity to this guy, Tommy Invincible. If you don't know who that is, if you aren't fully aware, but hey, like I said, if you're paying attention to this podcast, you might know. Tommy Invincible, a wrestler from the Bronx, shout out. I think he's like 29 years old, Italian dude. He has Invincible on his chest or on his back, He comes out of the crowd. He comes out of the curtain every time he comes out. He's like, Invincible! Skinny bald dude, kind of looks like Andrew Tate. And he comes out to the song Invincible by Machine Gun Kelly. That song is known for John Cena. And I think in the Bray Wyatt feud, that was WrestleMania 30. That song, I think, was used there. Or 28. I don't remember. Whatever. I think it's cool that he gave a guy like that an opportunity. Sure, he squashed him, but he gave him a platform because he's not big enough to, really get that recognition. Cool that he had that opportunity. Joey Janela defeated Masato Tanaka, ECW legend, Hammerstein legend. He beat him in a 12-minute match. It's getting like a 6.29, like at least on Cage Match, that's a green, so it looks good. Then we had Megan Bayne defeat Atticus Cougar. I haven't seen it, but I love Megan Bayne. Megan Bayne is one of the best women on the indies right now, and apparently AEW might have signed her. Thank God. I've seen her live twice at House of Glory, one of my favorite indie promotions, especially because they bring some of the best wrestlers out here in New York City, and has Amazing Red as the owner, one of the trainers. Megan Bayne, seen her there twice, and she is unbelievably talented and gorgeous. So we'll continue on with that. But she defeated Atticus Cougar. She does a lot of intergender matches, especially with GCW. There was a Bloodsport match. Josh Barnett went against Baron Corbin, a.k.a. Tom Petstock. Why? I think that's his shoot name. Man, you should have went with it. You could Baron something Corbin. Tom Corbin. I don't know. Anything but your shoot name. Yeah, then they had a 6-man tag. They had like a bunch of lucha dudes and Jake Cartwheel go against little Guido, super crazy. Tajiri, super crazy, jumped off the balcony. People were happy about that. That's one thing. Then we had Vikingo. He lost to Sydney, aka Reggie, the sommelier, Carmella sommelier from WWE, 24/7 champion. That guy. Apparently, they didn't have a good match. That's rough. Sydney, I don't know if people notice or not, but he's a flippy guy. How would you know? But he's just known for flips. It looks like he is not known for good matches. Yikes. Charles Mason had a steel cage match against Richard Holiday. I don't know much of the feud going on there, but that got a 4.15 with 26 votes. That seemed to be a stinker. The best match on the card was the GCW Tag Team title match. You got the Alex Price and Cole Radrick defeating Violence is Forever. If you're not familiar with Violence Forever, they have been the tag team champions for GCW for over the last year, I believe. And they're also the Deadlock Pro champions. Really cool team, really great wrestlers. That's the best match on the card. And there's still another couple of matches that I didn't mention. There's the Doors, Ladders, and Chairs match. Unfortunately, the match where Allie got hurt in 4 minutes. Then you had, the New York OGs. You had Amazing Red there. That was cool. So I think Sabu popped up in this match too. One of GCW's biggest strengths is that it's a deathmatch company as well. Joey Janela did tweet that it is very, very little of their fan base cares about the deathmatch part, which I get. But they can't do any of their crazy stuff on there. A lot of wrestling also, for GCW maybe, helps when it gets a little bloody. You can't intentionally bleed in New York State when it comes to pro wrestling because of the New York Sporting Commission. I don't know if that helps or hurts, but it definitely just takes away the essence of GCW, or at least for what I've grown to love with GCW, it takes it away from them. And then on top of that, these matches just, on paper, some of them sound really intriguing, but they just didn't deliver. Maybe it's just Hammerstein is not the show for them. It's not the venue. It's not fitting for them, unfortunately. And, Joey Janela had a tweet. He was like, yeah, the aura of this place is not the same. They had some amazing aura. Aura is a great wrestling term nowadays. Overused, but hey. They had the same aura, or not the same aura, but ROH. The ROH days in there. Really great stuff. The ECW days, obviously, really great stuff. But GCW couldn't really capture it. AEW also couldn't truly capture it either. They were better at getting some good matches in terms of, that is graps right here. Like Will Ospreay, Darby Allin, Kyle Fletcher, Daniel Garcia. They delivered in terms of a good quality in-ring match, which is unfortunately what the GCW locker room couldn't do as well. Maybe Effie and Allie Katch were going to do that, but unfortunately we'll never know. But man, yeah, with GCW not being able to do their hardcore stuff, you would think they would rely on just really, really good in-ring wrestling, which I have seen plenty of times from GCW, but unfortunately that was not the case here. And yeah, the crowd just wasn't having it. The crowd was not into it. It was a little smaller than the previous crowd. They didn't sell out truly. And they also gave out a lot of comps, from what I believe. Brett Lauderdale was out here saying, we're not out here giving away free tickets. Because people on Twitter were like, yo, Brett just gave me a free ticket. And then he's like, no, that's not happening at all. We're just promoting the show. Well, he was doing both. There's a photo of Brett Lauderdale with a giant stack of tickets. Unless this was last year, these are tickets for this show, and I believe it mostly because I wanted to go to this show. Before I knew the Ravens were going to be playing at the same time as this event, I was going to go to the show, but the ticket pricing was just not it for me. I wasn't going to pay $100, and I didn't really feel like spending $60 for GCW in 2025. No offense. Unless I'm sitting, in a really great seat, I'm not paying $60 to $100 for these shows, especially because partially I'm a little biased. I've gone to too many shows in 2014, so I'm not doing that again in 2025. And also, This isn't a bad thing when I say it, but my boy Zary Highlife has said it, and I agree. If you've been to one GCW show, you've been to them all. Typically, when you're not just in the New York area, there's a death match. There's some crazy extreme, wrestling, that'll go on. You'll have your Effie match, and he's probably taking on maybe someone who is a former WWE or AEW star. You have that match that is like your former AEW, WWE star, like, hey, I'm here, I'm trying to get a name for myself. We're going to start by doing it here in GCW. You'll have your alley catch match. You'll have your, Joey Janela match. Joey's always taking on the people that are leaving leaving a company or like a Hall of Famer or something like that. And it's kind of the same thing all the time with them. And that's not a bad thing. I've really enjoyed all the GCW shows for the most part that I've been to live. But man, this show just wasn't doing it for them. And as I was saying, I remember looking at the tickets 2 weeks ago maybe. I'm like, wow, they are not selling this show out at all. Why haven't they dropped the prices? Why haven't they dropped the prices to make this at least a sellout? Then last week, I'm like, whoa, all these seats are gone. Oh, now they're just opening up the 200 balcony? So what I'm guessing, you do the comps, you open up the 200 area to try and make up for the loss. I'd imagine they ran this show at a loss. GCW is a good and fun promotion. I want to see them succeed. I want to see all wrestling companies succeed. Unless you're booking Velveteen Dream. Then I don't want you to succeed at all. That and Marty Scurll. If you're booking those two, then you don't get anything. But, man, GCW just didn't have it, unfortunately. And as a GCW fan, I got GCW merch at home. I got the GCW flag. Man, unfortunate for them. Unfortunate that this wasn't the show that they should have had. But, hey, All-Star Weekend is going to be coming. They'll have some good stuff. I'm sure they'll do some more WWE collabs in the future. But with that being said, GCW just did not deliver, unfortunately. But they'll come back from this. I'd imagine they will. Okay, last part of the podcast, and then I'll tell you what we're doing on next week's show. But on the last part of this podcast, we're going to talk about my wish list for pro wrestling in 2025, mainly when it comes to AEW, and a little bit about WWE, because for the first time in a long time, WWE is not my biggest worry in the new year. It's kind of crazy. The new Raw on Netflix has been fun. It's been easier to watch. My biggest gripe still is there's still too many throwaway matches where I'm like, I don't need to watch this match. Why is Fusion Collective and Damage Control having really much of a nothing match that's not really building any storylines that really matter here? So there's that, but I'm impressed. I don't watch enough SmackDown, so I don't know what's going on there. They're doing 3 hours now. That's gonna be hard, especially on Fridays, because during the summer, Fridays are already hard for me because I'm already out and about and busy trying to live my life. But my Fridays are still pretty busy for the most part. I think I might have a free Friday this time to watch it, but either which way. 3 hours is too much pro wrestling for me, especially on a Friday. But I'd imagine SmackDown's still doing their thing. They got Jacob Fatu over there. I hear there's some stuff going on with him in Solo. I'm excited to watch WWE nowadays more than I am with AEW, which is, it pains me a little bit. Because back in 2019, back in 2020, WWE, my fandom was going downhill until AEW became a thing. And Deadlock Podcast became a thing. They saved my love for pro wrestling, so that's why AEW, I will always want to see succeed and do better than they ever have, I also am just not a tribalistic moron, so I also want all my wrestling to succeed. But when it comes to AEW as of late, man, it is sometimes truly hard to vote and root for them. The whole CM Punk stuff is always going to sting me in my chest because, man, why couldn't you both play along and make so much money together? But that's neither here or there. But when you look at people there's reports about Britt not being happy. You had the Penta stuff that he wasn't happy and he just wanted to leave, and eventually he did get the release and now he feels good. But if you look at Penta, he wasn't being used properly for the last year plus. Same thing with his brother, who's now been trying to say, like, get me out of here. Dude has a photo of him locked up in an insane asylum, which is kind of crazy because, we're used to, it was a big thing when people were first leaving WWE for AEW and the Indies that they were like leaving jail. They ended their prison sentence and they're out of here. Moxley was like one of the first people to truly do it, and then others kind of duplicated it in a way. But now, like, Penta's like, yeah, I'm locked up in Guantanamo Bay is like one of the things I've heard, which is WWE, AEW, like the Twitter followers have never been truly creative, but that is some of the creative stuff I've ever seen. But anywho, man, I just wish that the backstage, as someone who's never backstage, just someone who's a fan, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but at least from what's being reported from those who are or have connections in the back, why is there so much heat and issues in AEW? Tony Khan, why are you not a boss that people can be like, you're going to get things under control, you're going to get the right things done? It just seems like the inmates are running the prison half the time. I'm sure Jim Cornette's probably said that once or twice, man. Like, it's just so rough to hear every other week. Ricky Starks, Penta, Phoenix, maybe now the stuff with Britt. There's a reason why Cody left. I'm sure it's more than just money. There's obviously, we all know why CM Punk left. Why can't this be figured out from one of the biggest companies, the one that wants to, be up there with WWE? You're the second biggest company in America because there's never been this much competition in a long time for the WWE. And you're providing it, but then at the same time, one step forward, two steps back. You really want to be the alternative, and I respect that you are the company for great wrestling matches. As someone who loves a banger, I love that you do that for us. Every week, for the most part, there's always a really good match. But man, what is going on with making sure the stories make sense, they align with the characters, and, there's progression. People are progressing through their stories. I think someone tweeted about this the other day when it comes to AEW. MJF is the same MJF from the beginning of his career to now. He talks shit. He just always says he's the best in the world, best talent ever, one of the hottest commodities ever. He gets into these feuds. Win or loss, he doesn't grow as a character. Sure, he got hurt with Adam Cole, but you could say the Adam Cole storyline never happened, and this is the same MJF from before. I wouldn't notice anything different. There's just storylines that, a lot of people were talking about the 12-man match that we had on Collision, where it was Jericho, the Learning Tree, tag teaming with the Death Riders, going against FTR, Adam Copeland, shout out Cope, rated R superstar Cope, going against, these people. I'm forgetting the rest of the team besides Powerhouse Hobbs. The Outrunners, I think, were on there. I think that's their team. I forget it. Either which way. Apparently, Moxley's group hates the way AEW has become, and they don't like this, and they want to reshape the company. Tag teaming with with Jericho's team, is the exact opposite of what it's supposed to be for their storyline. What the hell? Also, the payoffs and story progression is so slow. I don't know who's in the back there, but there's a reason why AEW and WWE are different. WWE obviously focuses more on their stories than they do their wrestling matches, but they have been putting on some really good bangers in the last couple of years. But WWE has writers, real writers on there. Sure, I hope that some of them are wrestling fans or have learned to appreciate wrestling, and that's how they can write some good stories. But I don't think that's the same case with AEW, because sure, you got some Hall of Fame talents in the back producing matches and helping Tony Khan, but I don't know if any of these people know how to write a story, man. One of the best stories was the whole Bryan Danielson's career has one, he's going to wrestle, and once he finally really, really hangs up the belt and loses, then he's done for his full-time career. He lost to Moxley like a month or 2 months later after winning the belt, and there's nothing to really come out of this for Moxley and his crew besides they've been kicking everyone's ass, but there's nothing really like, this is why they had to kill like Bryan Danielson. I don't know. It just really sucks that there's not been enough of that for this company, and that is something I hope they really fix. One of the best stories that they had in the last year, Swerve, Adam Page. Storytelling 101 was done there. They could just keep replicating some of that. That would be great. RJ City wrote a lot of, or helped produce a lot of the Tony Storm stuff. That would be great if we could get some more of that. I just hope we get some real good progression from them in 2025, because I think this is a make or break year in terms of where they're going to fall into for the next couple of years as a wrestling company. They're going to survive. If TNA can survive, so can they, as long as they don't keep blowing out their money. But, they need to learn from their mistakes. And it seems like in certain cases they are. I would love to see more smaller venues from AEW because they're not selling out like they used to. But now that they're jumping onto the smaller venue wagon, like the one that they just ran in Cincinnati looked really cool. The place that they ran over the summer that Collision was at a lot of the time was cool. Hammerstein, also really cool. You run in these smaller venues, it makes sense. Look at someone I've been to all the Grand Slams until now that they're going to move it to Australia. But I've been to all the Grand Slams in Arthur Ashe. Every time. The first one basically sold out. Incredible. Beautiful. Then the second one happened. Still a lot of people in the crowd, but it got a little smaller. Then the third one happened. I'm like, okay, it's definitely getting smaller in here, but there's still a good presence in here. And then the 2024, there was no ramp like we used to. Everything was like, there was a lot more tarps out there than we're used to. Still a great turnout, but not what you would expect for Arthur Ashe. So I hope, Hammerstein now becomes a new home of AEW when they're in New York. We'll see what happens. So yeah, that's one of my things. For WWE, we could go back to some of the things that I want here. WWE, please be dangerous in 2025. And by that, I mean, take a chance. Try something that isn't so predictable. I'm a part of the Paper Champion, one of the best fantasy sports wrestling, creations ever. And we can predict. We do, a card every time a pay-per-view comes along. We put our bets in on, who do we think's going to win, and, whoever has the most correct answers and points, they win for the week. Or they win for that, show. I think I have 3, possibly 4, at least 3 predictions of, the highest points. And I think 2 of them, at the very least, come from WWE, and I think 1 of them comes from NXT. I don't even watch NXT. But the thing about Hunter, the thing about Sean, they're very predictable in their booking. They're very predictable. And sometimes when I'm like, oh, they're going to take a chance to do something new and, give me something I wasn't ready for, but I'm excited for. For example, Kevin Owens, Cody Rhodes, Saturday Night Main Event, and Long Island. I was like, this is the first Saturday Night Main Event in years. They're going to take a gamble. They're going to try something crazy, aren't they? Nope. Cody Rhodes beats Kevin Owens, and the craziest thing was after the cameras are off, Kevin Owens hits a package pile driver on Cody Rhodes. You could have made him win the title there. That would have been so cool because, one, Kevin Owens has been a great soldier for WWE these last couple of years, man. He's done so much storyline-wise. He is lost to the people you've asked him to. He's doing his thing, man. This man deserves something after losing to Goldberg for the Universal title after having a really fun run. And they have yet to reward him truly. He did get to Main Event Mania, so maybe you could say that's the favor they owed him. But man, it would be cool again to see him be a world champion. I love the idea that he threw out on SmackDown the other night where he was like, hey, We main evented WrestleMania together, and we won the tag team titles. But we've never faced each other at WrestleMania for the world title. Help me make this happen. I would pay so much money if that happened. I would love to see that live. I'd go to Vegas for that. Steen, El Generico, one of the best things ever in the wrestling world in terms of feuds. But WWE doesn't take the damn gamble as they should, man. It's just so rough, man. Just take the gamble, please. I beg of you once. Please take the gamble. Please. And just stop being safe. That's all I mean by taking the gamble. Stop being so safe. AEW has the same issue in a certain way where, same thing can be said with WWE. But I've seen a good amount of titles change on like a Collision or a Dynamite, mostly a Dynamite. You'll never see in WWE, for the most part, you'll never see like the world title, the big titles, ever change hands on a Raw, a SmackDown. That doesn't happen really often. That's why, when a pay-per-view's coming along, it's like, okay, maybe it'll actually happen. Like, I'm hoping Cody Rhodes might actually lose the world title to Kevin Owens at Royal Rumble in the ladder match. That would be so fucking cool. That would be great. And the same thing happens with AEW for certain instances. AEW loves putting champions against people they're clearly going to win. Like, they're clearly going to beat on a Dynamite or on a Collision. So many times the AEW World title, the TNT title, the TBS title has been put against people that have no momentum at all. No momentum. Sometimes you have someone who should not be ever touching the title facing the champion. Why? Beats me. Beats me. Let's get some help out there, man. Stop it. Stop it. They put these filler matches on too, something that WWE does. AEW does it too. This falls into the category of filler matches. Sometimes it's to kind of advance the story after the match is over. But in the terms of like, don't put the world title on the line, or don't put the, they love doing the, what's it called? The eliminator matches. They love putting eliminator matches on just for someone to lose. Like, can we just stop with that? Let's put on matches that make sense for the story more before an eliminator match. Let's work on that. So, yeah, that's really the biggest things I have. But I love both companies. I would just hope that they learn, and specifically AEW, because too many people are trying to leave your company nowadays, which is scary when you're the ones that were saying, we're the good guys here now. We're the people you can trust. I'll always remember CM Punk saying, hey, day one, I was ready for AEW. I was promised the best company. Everything would be different here. And then when I get here, as time goes on, the curtain drops. I'm butchering whatever he said, but you know what I mean. And then it's just the same thing over and over again. Same thing. I just hope AEW learns. AEW, get it together, please. I love you, but please get it together. And that's the show. That's pretty much the show. For some reason, I'm getting a little nasally at the end, a little congested. So hopefully that didn't sound crazy on the mic. But hey, that is episode 2 of Wrestle Cinema in our 2025 era. We might call it season 1. We might call it season 2. Who knows? But if we're going to be consistently doing this every week, maybe it's season 1. I don't know. But I do know we will be back next week for another episode of Wrestle Cinema. And yes, these first 2 episodes, we haven't talked about a movie that has a wrestler. But don't worry, on this next episode, we will. We will be talking about a movie that has a wrestler in it. We're going to be talking about Chris Jericho's Dark Match. And this is going to have a special release of Friday. We're going to drop the review on Friday, January 31st, because that is the same day that the movie comes out on Shudder. If you don't know anything about it, Chris Jericho's Dark Match is a movie that he's in with Shudder. It's a Shudder original, and Shudder is known for making some horror movies. They have their own streaming service, so you could go watch this movie on Shudder when it drops. And it's a wrestling horror movie where pretty much, I don't believe it's set in the 80s. You have this wrestling, group. You have this promotion. They get a call to go run a show. And little did they know that the show that they're going to go run is at a cult. And everything goes downhill from there. And Chris Jericho's in it. Trevor from GTA is in it, from GTA 5. So I was there. I'll talk all about it with my boy Finn. This episode will be a special Friday episode of the pod. And then I believe we'll get back to a weekly schedule, hopefully a more consistent Monday release schedule. Maybe that February 3rd, or we'll change it. I'll keep you posted. Stay tuned. Check out Wrestle Cinema on all social media platforms for everything. With all that being said, I'm your boy Joe, and I'll catch you next Friday. Peace!